Welcome to the series of videos on Oracle Fusion Receivables. In this session, let's see how we can create a debit memo transaction. But before we begin with, let's try to understand the concept of debit memo. Debit memo have a similar concept as that of an invoice. But unlike credit memos, debit memos are not linked to any particular invoice transaction. As the whole idea behind creating a debit memo is to increase the customer outstanding balance. Then, why create a debit memo instead of an invoice, as both ultimately increases the customer outstanding balance? This is because debit memo would mean that we billed you short in our invoice. And with reference to our previous transaction, we are billing you with the remaining amount now. Like say you have billed your customer short on a particular invoice transaction, with regards to quantity, or there has been retrospective change in price, against a particular invoice, or you need to charge interest to your customer on a particular invoice billing transaction, which is overdue. So, such cases will require the creation of a debit memo, and you can also refer your debit memo to a particular invoice billing transaction, using the cross-reference field. Let's go to the Fusion applications. And, in order to create a debit memo, select the transaction class as debit memo. The business unit will default based on your assignment. Transaction source will be manual, as we are creating manual transaction. Now, the transaction types depending on my business requirement. You can create multiple transaction types, which can default your customer receivables account, and sales revenue account. Suppose, here you are creating a debit memo for interest. Transaction date and accounting date will default to the current system date. Optionally, enter the salesperson name. Here when you select the salesperson name you will notice the orange information mark, and if you are to click on that, it will show you the information related to that particular salesperson: address of the salesperson, what is the job title, who is the manager of the salesperson, as well as contact detail for the same. If you have any supporting attachment, you can attach using this plus sign of Manage Attachments and input any notes also. Let's select the customer name, for which you are creating this debit memo. Now, once you have entered the general information and customer's detail, let's move down to the lines part. Here enter the relevant description for your debit memo, say interest for extra credit limit. Amount and quantity, say I'm creating a debit memo of $3,000. And once you have entered the information, you can just review your debit memo. Like, say payment terms for debit memo will not be based on discount, so let's just it to immediate. Also, in case you need to refer this particular debit memo transaction to an invoice billing transaction, you can click on Show More field, and under Miscellaneous tab, enter the cross-reference invoice number. Say, it was $11,785. You can also input special instruction if any, say credit limit charges to be collected in next payment. So once you are satisfied with the information, you can click on Complete button to complete your debit memo. Once completed, system will change the status to complete as well as generate the transaction number. Also, the Actions Log as well as View Image button will be enabled. Clicking on this view image will show you the details of the transaction you've entered, which you can also print. And if required, the same can be sent to your customer as well. So, this is how we create a debit memo transaction in Fusion Receivables. Thank you very much for watching this video.